Warning: the following video might contain moments that might be too disturbing for some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised.
A few years back, I worked as a nurse in a geriatric unit of the hospital in my hometown. There was one old woman there with pale blue eyes, whose mind was still fantastically sharp, and her desire to socialize and make new friends set her apart from most others living in that wing of the facility. That woman and I soon became close for this reason. Her name was Yana, and I still miss her every day since she passed. The strangest thing about Yana was not her accent, which could not only place vaguely as Eastern European. Not her disinclination to talk about her past, which means I never learned exactly where she had grown up. No, what fascinated me the most was that a stranger young man, badly mutilated and plainly blind and mute, would visit her every single day. His hands appeared deformed, seemingly eroded at each digit down to the first knuckle. But each evening, a little after dinner time, he would visit and they would sit together. She would read to him, or sometimes sing in her frail old voice. Sometimes they would just hold hands in silence. Finally, I gathered that courage to ask her about this man, and in a strange moment of openness, she agreed to tell me the story. My sister and I were the only surviving members of our family after our father passed away in 1964. These were very hard times for my old country, and father had grown sick that we were eventually forced to allow him to starve. I did waste food to comfort him, as he inevitably died. Sister had been losing her mind little by little before all this happened, but I could see in her eyes as we buried father that she had finally gone somewhere far away inside herself. I remember the crows, perching fake groups like clots of green black movement, watching us in the cemetery for all the rooftops. We moved to bury father quickly, because the crows were as hungry as we were. Sisters took to begging in the streets, sometimes trading love for rides into the city nearby in the hopes that her begging would be more profitable there. It was during these terrible times that she commenced a son, a jerk whose father was not known to her, but he was really some manner of dangerous monster. But it was the only kind of man my sister knew in those days of her life. The child was delivered happy and with a glowing spirit that broke my heart because I knew that soon the young boy's eyes would look like mine and like my sister's, even on the day he was born. I know his beautiful, joyous innocence could not last. Sister did not care for her son as she should have, as God and goodness alike demand that a mother should care for her child. She would not change the boy's soiled diapers, leaving this to me instead. I would forget to feed him, even when he is hungry. Will was ringing shrill and miserable through the whole house. Eventually, she began to take him out, begging, using the child as a prop with which to elect the sympathy of strangers. She was most pleased when he looked his worst, and even complained to me once or twice that she could raise no money at all on days that he looked too healthy. I could never forget her final act of cruelty against Vasily. I named him myself after sister could not be bothered. It was morning, and I had walked outside into our yard to smell the air. The child was lying motionless on the ground there, and seemed quite dead, smeared as he was with his own blood. His little fingers and toes were black with frostbite. Sisters had not even bundled him in anything when she laid him down hours ago in the dark of night. The crows, which were as hungry as we were, had plucked his beautiful eyes and tongue from his still living body. I grabbed him up with tears already pouring down my cheeks, thinking that I had claimed a corpse, and so when he there against my chest, I realized he might be saved. I swallowed him as warmly as I could, and fed him something before rushing him down to the home of the town's only doctor. I nearly beat down the front door with my fist, and he answered with sleep still in his eyes because it was so early. I paid him with all the heirloom jewelry from mother that I had been able to hide from sister over the years. An hour or so later, the doctor told me Wesley would live, but asked that he be allowed to monitor the child for the rest of the day. I told him that this would be fine, as today would be a busy day for me, and indeed it was. By evening, I had smashed sister's head to a flattened pulp with a cast iron skillet from her stove, obtained a train ticket for passage out of our home country, and made plans to give Wesley the best life that he could still yet have. Wesley, my son now, knows nothing about any of this. Of course, I told him that only that he was adopted away from a situation which he was likely not to survive. The mirthful optimism I saw on his face when he was born survives to this day inside his heart. such and all in her malice, had only managed to suppress it for a while, and now almost 50 years later, it was still visiting his elderly mother every single day. She beamed with pride as she finished her story, but said no more, and she was right. Vasily loved her so much, or no resentment on his face for his injuries. Hui seemed to be smiling pleasantly even through his blindness. He often didn't know anyone was looking. He visited her every day until she died. He was holding her hand when she passed. I knew from his interactions with hospital staff that he understood spoken English. So at Yana's funeral, I told him that I had been a friend of his mother's. I told him that she was the most amazing, wonderful woman I had ever met. His sad, grateful smile grew deeper. He nodded his head. His words came in sign language. She was. So that was Story of a Mother's Love, a creepypasta, and my thoughts on it. That was pretty grim, but pretty good one. Like, the story is actually, mostly on the Yana's story is pretty tragic. Like, felt bad for the girl who had to go through so much, because, the stuff like her father and, kind of close to losing her own kid and all that. And also, there's not like, typical scary stuff. It's just like having more of a grim, sad approach, which could be a good thing since it's rather refreshing to see a creepypasta going for that route, kind of. And the ending of the story started to have a bittersweet note since Yana died, and it's just kind of depressing to to see that a very nice woman just died in a rather slow, sad way. And anything else about the story? Well, it's actually pretty interesting that the person, which is referred as a strange young man that the protagonist met, was badly mutilated and plainly blind and mute, which I think there has to be something to do with why he was blind and mutilated like that. But it's still a mystery. So yeah. So overall, pretty good creepypasta. So like and comment this video and subscribe more content. And happy Mother's Day, everybody. So bye.